I would say this week was a blast from the past, but well, I just was never into the muscle cars. So maybe it's just nostalgic of seeing my cool friends and what they used to drive. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now this week is the all new 2019 Chevrolet Camaro, specifically the SS. And with that, well, comes some excellent super sport. Everyone knows I'm not a big gearhead. It takes me hours to figure out what that is under the hood and, well, try to remember what this is used for. But really getting behind the wheel is what I truly love, and really harnessing the power of a vehicle like this. And the one thing I think of is, well, how does this vehicle taunt the competition? How does the Camaro cast its shade? And it's truly right from the exterior. It doesn't do it from, well, badging and, well, name plating. It does it, well, just by the silhouette, the sculpting, the ridge lines, that grille warfare. And the reason for this is, well, look around. Camaro's barely even noticeable. Up front, of course, nice huge bow tie, the double S, but well, I just couldn't find Camaro, of course, until I opened the door and saw it there on the sill. Where you will find it is real small and microscopic here on both sides of the fender. That tells me, well, it's not about the name necessarily, it's about the design. And of course, Camaro, well, everyone recognizes it. Don't get me wrong, the Camaro has a long heritage and definitely the name means business, but really by minimizing the badging, what it's basically saying is, well, you better recognize me long before you figure out what my name is. Now, what I like is, well, the size of these big coupes like this, the good old nostalgic throwback. Heck, this hood just reminds me of a landing platform from an aircraft carrier. Now, when you look at the numbers, this is truly where it measures up, about 188 inches overall, 110 when it comes to the stretch wheelbase. As for width, around about 75 inches, and height, well, just about 53 inches tall. Those are great snug numbers that really keep it tight to the road. Now, when you look at the overall track, you're looking around about 63 inches up front, just a smidge less there at the back, but great numbers that really keep this vehicle tight and, well, definitely helps it get through the S-curves. Modest changes may be the name of the game for 2019, but still they really set off a difference from the 18 model. Now, as you sweep down, one thing I love is it's really no smooth edges here, but blunt force trauma when it comes to design. Nice strong line right through here that really sweeps up, brings the eye, but then catches this line here. Nice shelf here at the back end, really harnessing the overall look and chiseling. Again, no smooth architecture until you get about right here, but overall, nice blended design all the way around. Now, some changes back here, a little bit of difference when it comes to fascia. The stylizing of the rear taillights have kind of a tint, smoky, clear look to them, really sets off a change. Now, of course, this back here, standard operating procedure, good old spoiler for the SS. Up front, again, some subtle changes, but dramatic nonetheless. Really new stylized signature headlights up front with kind of this rope lighting that sweeps all the way across. Now, these are really dynamic and really set off the front end. Nice bright white LEDs, little accent light down low. Now, if you look at the hood, nice new extractor there in the front. And again, some sculpting through that really couples nicely with the roof line up top. Now, a lot of lower fascia flare out, and of course glossy black paint that really sets off this front end. Now, tons of airflow right through the middle, but as it sweeps across, it's going to tuck out in these outer ports that really sweep the air around. Talk about innovations. First off, let's talk about ingress into this vehicle, not the height and the fact that I got to flip, fold, and bend to get inside, but really the smart systems we always talk about at the door. Now, when it comes to the Camaro SS, pretty much a good old key fob, pretty much keep it in your pocket and forget about it. Everything's done with the access point here at the button level. Basically press it one time, unlocks the vehicle with ease, makes it so easy to get inside. Now, when you go to walk away, just press it one time again. Now, the Achilles heel I always talk about is the fill-up area, and unfortunately for the Camaro SS, it pretty much is unlocked all the time. Now, it appears that it could be lockable just by this appendage here. Maybe that's just an extra add-on, or could be, but I like the fact that if this could lock, because again, vehicles like this, if you should maybe gain some enemies because you beat them at the racetrack, well, you don't want them to give you a little bit of extra additive here when you're not paying attention. Lastly is the new school approach, pretty much going capless, making at least one less step when you get to the fill-up. Swing around to the back end, this is where you really notice those differences I mentioned earlier, again with the fascia changes, the rear taillights with that smoky darkened tin accent. It even goes right down to the tail light here as well. Now there are safety points back here, basically backup sensors and a backup camera. And both those couple nicely because there are some blind spots when it comes to this rear window, as well as looking around the sides. It's just a little bit kind of tight looking otherwise without these safety mechanisms. Now when it comes to the backup camera, it's actually tucked in right about here, but what's interesting is this looked like a camera to me right here on the spoiler, but if it is, well, I just couldn't get it to integrate and I couldn't figure out exactly what this is. So if it is an operational camera at all, it basically needs to go back to a nice body color because it really just stands out otherwise. Now when it comes to the rest of the design, pretty much like the body color all the way around the vehicle, a little bit of rubber cladding that sweeps around here the back, and of course the dual exhaust pipes here at the back end that give it such a nice rumble. Now the Camaro SS is definitely a vehicle for the couple on the go. It's a weekend warrior that can basically get you out of town and take your gear with it. It all starts here at the back end, the business side of things when it comes to at least getting away. Now what's interesting, to get inside of here, there is a button there in the inside, one on the key fob, but there's also electronic release. Now it takes a second to figure out, get your bearings, because most notably I'd think it'd be up high, but it's actually right above the license plate. Just reach down, press it, and it pops with ease. Now once it's up out of the way, typical cavernous area, small offering here, but what you're going to see overall is around about 9.1 cubic feet of space. Now that drops by about 2 cubic feet if you go to the convertible, but as we see it here, fairly decent space to at least get away for a couple of days. Popping the hood may be what friends want to see because, well, this is what it awaits, specifically a 6.2 liter V8 engine. Now it's going to deliver equal numbers when it comes to horsepower and torque at 455 respectively for both. Now what's great is it really gives you great neck snapping fun. That's mainly because of the driving mode. You got the good old standard touring, but you do have the sport and track, which will give you a lot of boot scoot and boogie from the line. Now this can be equipped with a manual transmission, but as we saw it here, this is the all new 10-speed automatic compared to last year's 8-speed. Now I prefer the non-clutch dance because it just makes it a little bit easier to drink my coffee and, well, get going down the road. Now unfortunately we had rainy conditions all week, which made it a little bit more difficult to test out the 0 to 45 because after all I tend to keep it going to the speed, so pretty much we kept it nice and steady. Now at the four corners you will find 20-inch wheels. Now these were wrapped with a 245/40 in the front and a 275/35 in the rear, and it gave us great grip at the four corners, even though we didn't really test out the 0 to 60 that much. Now one thing to note, with its low profile tires and pretty much low ground clearance, you will get a little bit of road harshness being flung up underneath the vehicle, but one thing I found, if you turn up the radio loud enough or stomp the gas, it tends to drown that out. Looking inside the Camaro SS, this is really where you see the 2+2 typical design when it comes to this coupe. Just a hint of back seat, but really the win for all up front. Now what you're going to see is around about 43 inches of legroom, really handling any tall, any size individual, being able to stretch out with ease. Now for individuals that don't need that much room, it will creep the seats forward just a hair, but even that said, the back seats just don't lend themselves that much to comfort because, well, they're just meant to be seen, not to be, well, set in. Front center on the dash is going to be an 8-inch screen. It really houses everything you need. Now you will notice it's angled back just a hair from the driver, and that may help with glare or whatever, but it was not your standard straight up and down kind of approach. Now once you dive in, really this is the home screen here, allows you to, well, to find your way if you get lost, and you can simply kind of toggle through the different screens. Now what I like right here, this is kind of more of a split screen approach, really gives you some information on the side and your main screen on the left, but what I like is to always have the entertainment there front and center. Now what you will notice with the screens like this, really minimizes the needs for buttons down below, really just a simple volume control, tune select, obviously the back button if you lose your way, or the home button as well. Now one unique area really is the climate control system. Basically everything on the horizontal right through the middle, basically all the mode selects, even the heated and cooled seats here on the left and right, and your display for your temperature setting. Your fan speed's kind of going to be a little bit small with these buttons here, as well as the different mode selects here. Now what's great is actually setting the temperature for either front occupants. That's done with actually kind of a dial approach here with the vents. Basically spinning this left or right will increase the temperature, and that does translate up to the screen up above as well, basically allowing the driver not have to look way down here to this number. But what I found is that actually just kind of a different approach. Now one thing I'd prefer is, instead of buttons, this actually be a knob, make it a little bit easier to use. Do have the automatic transmission here. You can flip it to the left for the manual-like feel. Now for the driving modes, you do have the change here, basically allowing you to go from tour, sport, track, or snow and ice. Real easy to toggle. Now again, I didn't test out the track mode that much. Does help and stiffen up the vehicle just a little bit, but if you're everyday driving, you're pretty much going to stick with the tour. Now if you do need to power things up, you can go with the power supply here, and you do have nice dual cup holders between the front occupants. If you do need to kind of taper down the airflow, you can of course lower the fan speed, but you can also kind of dial in right through here, cutting off the airflow individually at each vent. Again, I like the operation with just a good old twisting. Allows for individual, well, attention to either the driver or occupant. The gauge cluster is going to kind of combine old school and new school thinking, basically in the form of analog tach and speedometer, but a nice huge digital readout in the middle, most notably with the digital speed. Now it does give you a nice compass that kind of goes along with the turn of the vehicle, but that digital readout is really crucial when you're at least watching 0 to 60 numbers or just the performance of the vehicle. Now there is also a heads-up display, so the driver has multiple options of kind of what they want to attend to. On the steering wheel, you'll find functions for the cruise control on the left side, heated steering wheel on the right side. That is the controls really to change that digital display on the gauge cluster. Now what you can find a little bit further back on either side is your shortcuts for your favorites, as well as volume controls here. Now it does for this edition of Road Warrior, and a test drive behind the wheel of the 2019 Camaro SS, a vehicle again that's outside my wheelhouse and comfort zone when it comes to, well, boot scooting and boogie. But even for this novice, I enjoyed the everyday driving and basically being able to, well, showboat on the open road. And again, the Camaro SS doesn't do it with badging or emblazoning itself on the side with its nameplate everywhere you look, but instead does it, well, by its silhouette. Definitely setting the tone, and again, poking the competition just at every chance it can get. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.